It's like GPS for your life. The Sky Vibe Show. Are you mooning me? I'm sorry, I had to start that way. It's Judy Diamond along with professional astrologer Thomas Miller.
Only you,
and
Judy.
Oh, moon, blue moon. Everybody talks about the sun sign, the rising. Poor little moon. It's got to have more meaning than a lot of people think.
Oh, it's huge. You know, think about it. Except for about 3 days out of the month, we look up at the moon every night up in the sky in some kind of configuration or another, don't we? And it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
The
and
moon
we're
governs.
affected when it's a full moon. We know that.
You bet. You bet. What about the tides?
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to worry about that where you are, but the tides are all controlled by the moon every 6 hours, basically. So the moon has a tremendous, other than gravitational force on our life. It absolutely does.
So as astrology in your chart, I know my sun sign's Leo, for example, whatever your sun is, and on TikTok, all they're talking about is sun and rising, Scorpio. But when you get to the moon, I understood it to mean that it's more your spiritual side, your moon. But am I right? Am I wrong?
Well, there's a book that I narrated as an audiobook. So I'm an audiobook narrator. And
a very good one at that.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Stephen Forrest is the author. He's one of the prominent astrologers on the planet today. And I just feel so honored to have done six books for Steve now.
Wow.
And the Book of the Moon happens to be the latest one. Now, that's not why we're doing this podcast, but just to mention, this is so fresh with me right now. And on my fun...
No, we're doing it because I asked you about it.
Yeah, you wanted to know.
I want to know.
Well, on my Fun Astrology podcast, which we've cross-talked about on here quite a bit, I have an interview that is posted on early May. Just look, early May 2024 with Steve on the Book of the Moon. And I interviewed him for 30 minutes. And it's a great interview. So that you should listen to that for sure if you're interested in this. And the book is an absolute classic treasure of information on the moon. So he talks about a lot of astronomical and astrological facts and data about the moon in the first several chapters. For example, let me give you a little technique. Have you ever heard of something called the void of course moon?
I've heard you talk about it. I never understood what it meant on your show.
Okay, so the moon's the fastest moving item on the astrology chart. It changes signs or pieces of pie every about 2 to 2.5 days in its 27.3 day orbit around the Earth, just to be precise. So it changes signs every about 2.5 days. Depends on...
So if you don't like one, just wait a couple times.
Exactly.
Kind of like the weather.
And a lot of people follow that because they know that an Aries moon for those couple of days gets stuff moving. Hammer it out, push stuff forward. Taurus, grounding, time to get more stable, like hold back, don't push forward so much. Gemini, multiple projects, those are your multitasking days right there. And you can literally draw energy from the field, if you will, into wherever the moon is at that given time. Well,
This is fascinating to me.
When the moon leaves a sign, so let's say it's getting ready to leave Gemini, and now the next sign it's going to go into is Cancer. Somewhere there at the last part of Gemini, there are no other planets that it will form some kind of an angle, a geometric angle to another planet. We call it aspects. So then it's just moving through Gemini with no other planets influencing it. It's not kissing anybody else on the way out the door, so to speak.
So does that make it pure Gemini?
No, but I'll... Oh, my. Okay. The only way I can think of it to say it's impotent. Yes, exactly.
I was just kidding. That's why they call it a blue moon.
No,
Sorry.
That's not why. The moon is impotent. After it's kissed its last planet on the way out, it's kind of limp, It's kind of just there. And it doesn't
So it has less power.
Yeah, no catalyst. And actually, one thing that Steve this is interesting that he points out, because a lot of people believe today in manifesting and shifting realities and all this stuff has been big topics these days. Well, the moon, in kind of the metaphysics of this all, the energies use other planets to create things. So yes, we can trigger things from the moon, but not unless it has help from Pluto or from Mars to really get something going, or love. We want Venus at the table, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But just as it's leaving the sign, there's that little period where it needs the little blue pill, and it's not going to get it until it gets into the next sign.
So, in other words, when something is now when the moon is void of course, when it's limp, biscuit.
Who knew we were
Then-
going here? That's okay.
is it
Everybody's a
good
big
to
boy and
you?
girl. Do what?
Is it good then or bad? Or
No, it actually is a dead time. It's like, like if you've been out at the ocean, the tide goes out and then there's slack tide and then the water starts to rise again. So it's like a slack tide.
now all I can think about is the blue pill. Okay.
Come back,
so wait a
Judy.
second.
Come back.
I know. Sorry, my head is all over the place. So wait a second. It's during that time that maybe you'd want to meditate, lay down low.
That's very good time for that, for like just personal stuff, getting things done, etc. What you don't want to do is get married during that time.
Oh.
What you do want to do during that time is mail your taxes.
Ugh.
Go to the post office during that time. Or if you e-file, click to send e-file. Why? Because you don't want something to happen after that. You want to just do that activity, and that's it. You don't want any follow-up. That's a perfect time for that.
What about doing something like writing? Let's say you want to write something. Is that a good time to write or no?
No, take a break.
Okay.
Take a break. You want that inspiration of after it moves into the next sign.
Okay. And how long does this usually last?
It can last from literally less than an hour to up to 15 or 20 hours. It just totally depends on the sky at any given time. On Fun Astrology, we talk about this quite a bit because there are
never understood it.
Well, there are other techniques you can use in addition to that. For example, the last planet that it kisses on the way out the door. So let's say right now a big one is Neptune. If it kisses Neptune on the lips, if it's a French kiss on the way out, then you want to take advantage of that. Neptune represents spirituality. So if there's something spiritual that you wanted to do, like write a spiritual blog article or something reflective or something that is not just facts and figures and without emotion, if it's something that you would like to connect with somebody on an emotional level, that would be a really good time to post that blog article, is right as the moon was hitting Neptune on its way out. If it's a scratchy last, like not even a kiss, kind of just an elbow in the ribs kind of thing, I'll see you in a month kind of deal. Then
And I'm thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, then you would not want to put activity into that. Now, let me give you an example.
Yeah, because I don't know what the difference is.
Speaking of Neptune, all right, Steve put this in the book. This is where I'm drawing from it, the Book of the Moon. Do you remember Apollo 13, the one that almost got lost in space back in the 1960s, right? That was launched during a void of course moon, where the last aspect was a negative aspect to Neptune.
What would be a negative? Like
a square,
Scorpio?
a square aspect, like a 90 degree.
So it's not a sign; it's an actual aspect.
It's an angle.
Something.
Yeah, the angle that
gotcha.
it was to Neptune at that time. So it was a negative aspect to Neptune, and you know what happened.
Yeah, that was kids. You should look it up or look at video.
They weren't lost in space, but they had all kinds of problems with the mission, and they almost were. They really, literally, if it wasn't for some duct tape and a lot of people keeping their heads together, we would have lost those 2 astronauts.
I wonder if NASA is now looking to charts and astrology and astronomy of when to launch things.
Unfortunately, I'll bet they didn't get the memo.
You might be surprised. They do talk about full moons on NASA's website. So
they do, but they don't understand it from this configuration. So the moon is very important in our lives, and there is so much in our charts. But I will tell you this, the biggest thing, and when you go all the way to the end of Steve's book, and this is not giving anything away because it is so rich in between, but what you learn at the last chapter, the conclusion, is that if we figure out our moon and we get it right, then whenever our time comes and it's time to fly and say goodbye, we'll know that we have achieved our soul purpose. And that really is truly a beautiful thought.
Wow. Well, now I want to dive deeper into to my own moon here, and we'll dive deeper into all that. And actually, there's so many questions I have, Thomas. So many. This show could go on forever because we got to break down things like the personality of a Scorpio. Because when you talk about Gemini or you talk about Neptune, the planet, and what it means, these all are really important things to know.
Well, they absolutely are, Judy, and this makes so much difference in our lives. And people who are living consciously and following this kind of stuff, I mean, just the joy and the radiance you get from people on this amazing journey is worth it all right there. And the Book of the Moon, too, is available on Audible and Apple Books if you'd like to. I would appreciate it if you'd take a look at it. It's a great listen and as well as a great read.
I downloaded the Book of Fire, because I have a fire sign, by Steve Forrester, narrated by you. It's fantastic. So This is on my list next.
Good. It's a good one.
Make sure to follow Thomas Miller's other podcasts, including Fun Astrology and Old Soul, New Soul. And you can also find out about getting your own astrology readings. Thank you for listening.